How's it going, everybody? This is Dave Meltzer. We're finishing up the week here on Wrestling Observer Live. We've got Brian Alvarez, Figure 4 Weekly, who's going to be here, as well as Chris Pope will be here in about a half an hour. We'll be talking about his book, which is the Encyclopedia of Pro Wrestling, the Good, the Bad, and the Collectible. It's kind of an encyclopedia. It'll be coming out next month. We'll be talking to him about how to get the book, what's in the book. I have not seen the book, so I can't really comment on it at all. But he'll be up in a little while. Brian, how are you today?
I'm doing good.
That's good. Brian, I guess we could start. We'll start with Eric Bischoff is now involved with Matt Rats, which I actually pretty much expected since when he went up to Calgary, and the connection with Jason Hervey and Mandalay Sports and everything. He's going to be the vice president. He's going to be in charge of trying to get financing, trying to make the business deals, which is actually something he's good at. Creative. I don't even really know if booking actually fits into this thing. You know, the one thing with the Matt Rats is the booking could be really stupid and it probably won't hurt it, and it could be really smart and it probably won't help it because it's being marketed to teenage girls. I don't know. I don't know what to say about it. Actually, we should probably talk to Eric Bischoff about it at some point. But anyway, that's the big announcement by Eric Bischoff. I don't know if if he said anything about it, but I mean, they released it yesterday, the Matt Rats people, that he's going to be doing that. Any comments on that?
I just hope the thing flies. I mean, you know, we've talked about the downsides to it, just the fact that the audience that it's marketed towards is an audience that I don't know if it can really help the thing, you know, get huge or anything like that. But, you know, it's something new. It's like you were talking about earlier. I don't think the booking is such a big deal because the whole thing is based around all the high flying and everything like that. And I think that if it's an audience that wants to just see the high flying, they're not going to care so much about the soap opera. Plus, with WWF, you know, there's a lot of people that are just pretty much plain sick of soap operas. So I guess we'll see what happens. And if Bischoff's behind it and Mandalay's behind it. The one thing is, I'm at least happy that a lot of these guys are going to make some money off this while they're still young, because
if they are,
and I just hope that some of them save it, because
if they are, there's no guarantee that they're going to make money.
Yeah, I mean, I think they'll make a little bit of something better than $25 a night or something like that. But you know,
that's true.
I don't think it's going to be like huge money or anything like that. But it's something for them to do.
The thing with this concept, though, is that I really believe that it's something that if you put it out on tour, will not draw at all.
Yeah.
I mean, and I watched the TV pilot that they did, and I mean, we've talked about this on the show before. The announcing was excellent. Moronal is a really good announcer. The action is really good. They do short matches. There's no psychology to them, but they're short matches with incredible moves. The launching pad thing, which is basically this thing on the top of the ring post, I think is a great idea, and will probably end up being done on innovated and used on indie shows throughout the United States. Probably once people start seeing this, because it allows for more high-flying moves. But I don't know. Touring wrestling and making money touring wrestling is very, very difficult anyway, under the best of circumstances. And but this doesn't lend to it because it's appealing to such a narrow demographic group. You know, basically teenagers. If it's put on it as a TV product, it's going to have to be like Saturday Morning Fare, I think.
Yeah. I mean, the upside is it is a new concept, and I don't know.
It is. Yeah.
I don't know what they can do with it. If they don't get TV, it's going to just be, what can they really do?
It won't exist without TV. It's TV product.
Yeah. So but these guys are young, and it's exposure for them. And the one downside is it's the whole all these guys are 21 years old and under, and they're not going to have anybody in there that can really teach them how to work. So what these guys can do now is pretty much, as far as like having an actual wrestling match, is probably about as good as they're going to get. I mean, I'm sure that the high spots can get a lot better. And I'm sure that there are going to be some high spots that are invented there that have probably never been done before. But as far as like becoming good all-around wrestlers, which is what you need to be to make it to WWF or WCW, I think it's one of the hindrances there is the fact that everyone's just so young, and that's what they're keeping it as.
It's not going to be the best training ground for WWF, put it that way.
Yeah.
I know what you're saying there. Because the guys, that's the style that they will all learn to work is not a style that you're going to go to WWF and work.
Yeah.
Let's see, SmackDown, I guess we could talk about that. SmackDown did a 4.2 rating, which actually is pretty decent considering pretty tough competition last night. And I don't know, I made a big mistake last night. After the show was over, I watched the EMLL video, pay-per-view from March 30th. And then I watched SmackDown, and I should have done it in the other order, because after watching that pay-per-view and, the emotion in it, and I just, enjoyed every single match, I watched SmackDown, and it was just I didn't hate anything. Well, I take that back. I
There
didn't
were a
hate
couple
much.
pretty horrible things on that show.
China
I didn't think the main event was anywhere near as bad as I kind of expected it to be. I mean, at least they got heat on Kane for a while, but the one thing I hated was, the reason they got heat on him was because he had been injured earlier and he had one arm. And then he's making his comeback with one arm. He's beating up the tag champs with one arm. And, of course, they did the deal at the end where everyone's bawling outside and Undertaker pinned Kristian. And it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be with Undertaker just, destroying them both and pinning him clean. But he did pin him clean, but I think overall it was a little bit better than I expected.
It was still 5-on-2.
It wasn't a burial. How about that?
No, it wasn't a burial, but it was still 5-on-2. And, the key heels in that thing were not Edge and Christian, but Austin and Triple H. And, Rhino just got, Rhino did the run, and he got laid out, although he got the hardcore title earlier in that fluke, thing in early
Which
in the
was
show.
a total fluke. He just got squashed.
Yeah. I think the match itself was better than I expected it to be. Although Undertaker, there was one segment, it would have been in the early part of the show, where Undertaker was brawling with Edge and Christian over the rail, where he just looked so old.
Yeah.
And when this was, when the hardcore title situation thing, China was very weird, and I think that they're booking her to get her not over right now.
They got to be booking her to be a heel.
Well, it looked like subtle heel, but an interesting heel though. Like kind of cocky that it all went to her head and stuff. Which
especially when they do that Molly Holly interview first, where she's trying for all the world to be the cutest person in the entire world, and they immediately cut to China.
Golly gosh, Molly Holly.
This creature looking in the mirror. Oh my God.
Yeah. The thing on Monday night on Raw, they had, I think it was Monday night on Raw. It was the weirdest thing because they had Molly Holly was in there, and there's this woman holding up this sign that says Molly is a hottie, and I'm just going, and they flash right on it, and I go, this is a little bit too weird for me this week. What are you gonna do? I don't know. I don't know what else to say about that. I thought the WCW thing, I think that one of the problems among many with WCW is WCW has a very negative image. Yes. And John Muse was actually the one on this show who really, way before they went out of business, pretty much explained it really, really well as far as the name brand WCW has always come up short in every single situation. It's always been made to be the fool's promotion. And to me last night, when I saw Vince and Shane there, Vince so totally overpowered Shane as far as in the scene. I mean, Shane, and then, I'm not talking about the outsmarting storyline scripting, but throwing that in as well. You have this thing where WCW just looked like it was being run by, just another clod that Vince is going to manipulate around pretty easily.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's the way that they should be presenting the WCW brand, right now because, unfortunately, it already has a negative image.
Yeah, that name just being mentioned still gets that violently negative reaction on TV. And even though Shane's supposed to be a babyface, every time they mention WCW, there's everyone boos and they're angry to hear the name, and I don't know. I felt bad for Big Show last night, because here's this guy coming out, and I know he probably brings a lot of it on himself by not getting in better shape, but he comes out, Vince rails on him as the biggest disappointment in the history of the World Wrestling Federation.
And he believes it too.
Oh yeah. And then they go to
paying
the
the guy so much
of Vince showing, from a year ago, Shane making fun of Big Show for about 3 straight minutes, just clip after clip after clip. And at the end you just realize what a goof this Big Show is. And then of course he turns on Shane McMahon and we get a match between the two, which I cannot possibly look forward to, but I just kind of felt sorry for the guy. It's hey, you're getting buried by Vince, you're getting buried by Shane, getting buried because you're fat. Oh well. I guess there's a lesson to be learned there.
Yeah. Well, it's not like they haven't told him privately and publicly what he needs to do, and here it is months later, and he didn't do it. I can't feel sorry for him. If he had gotten, I could feel sorry for Mark Henry, okay? And Mark Henry probably, ability-wise, does not deserve, from a wrestling ability standpoint, to be in the WWF. There's so many guys that are better. But Mark Henry, he went out there and he lost, whatever it is, 80 pounds or something like that. He lost a lot of weight. And, Big Show was sent there to do the same thing. And he may have lost some weight, but he didn't lose a lot of weight. He certainly didn't get to 375 like they wanted him to. And, they brought him back, and ever since he came back, whatever weight loss he was doing has certainly stopped, and it's probably starting to reverse.
Yeah. The weird thing about wrestling is, in the context of a fake storyline, you can actually bury a person in real life, and it's all part of the show.
It's that, what's the word? Someone explained that, used terminology to me over the weekend. It's that ribbing on the square. Ribbing on the square, that was the term.
Yes.
Where you act like, this is just a work, but everyone in the world knows that every single word is real. Mm-hmm. But it's being done as part of a storyline, so you're not supposed to get mad about it, about what these people are saying about you, even though, quite frankly, they mean every word of it.
Yeah.
So anyway.
And I don't know if there's anything to do with the departure of Jerry Lawler, but I never noticed this before, but lately they have been making out Brian Christopher to be the world's biggest jackass. I
don't think it's anything to do with Jerry Lawler. I think that's just the gimmick.
Just coincidental that all of a sudden he's got this speaking role and he's come across as an idiot?
I think he would have had the same speaking role and come across the same way. Because he kind of before, he was kind of still doing the same stuff. He just didn't get as much airtime.
Yeah.
And I personally don't think it has anything to do with Lawler. In fact, I think, if anything, he's getting more airtime because of Lawler to try to show that, by giving him more airtime, act like an idiot, that, we don't hold we don't hold a grudge against you because, your father left, type of a thing.
Okay.
That's what I think. New Japan announced that Yuji Nagata's opponent for the Fukuoka Dome show on May the 5th will be Rainy Martinez. And if you don't know who Rainy Martinez is, that's okay, because no one else does either. He actually did one UFC show in 1998, I think. I actually remembered against Jerry Bolander. Jerry Bolander beat him in like a minute very easily. And why he should be against the number one contender for the world's title on a Fukuoka Dome show on a primetime special is totally beyond me. Now, I had been told a couple days ago that they might announce an opponent for Yuji Nagata that's a fake opponent, in that they'll eventually announce someone else. So hopefully that's the case, because...
Why?
Why? I don't,
To slow the ticket sales?
I know, really. I know, it's funny. It's like, WWF can get away with this kind of stuff because the fact is WWF tickets sell really good. But these other companies, like every other company in wrestling, with no exceptions, they actually have to work for selling tickets. So this thing of like holding secrets and things like that is so stupid. Like the thing with, one was really bad was 0-1 the other day. And maybe it was like just last minute negotiations, but they didn't announce the main event of their show, and that was Misawa and Takeshi Rikio against Naoya Ogawa and Kazunari Murakami, their pay-per-view on Wednesday. I don't think they announced the main event until Monday. And it's like, WWF may be able to get away with 2 weeks before the show getting the main event out there and still doing good buy rate because it's WWF. But where pay-per-view is in its infancy, you can't go in there and announce a pay-per-view 2 days ahead of time and expect to get any kind of buys, or sell tickets to an arena show when you don't announce the main event until 2 days before. I don't understand the mentality there.
Yeah.
We got a poll question result. This is pretty overwhelming. Actually, this is about as overwhelming a result of a poll question that we have ever had. This is, are Chris Benoit, Chris Jericho, or Kurt Angle ready for true main event status? That's like that, not that fake main event, but real main event status. 8% said only Kurt Angle, 4% said only Chris Benoit, 1% said only Chris Jericho, 85% said, actually 86% said at least two, if not all three, and 1% said none of them, which, by the way, all came from New Hampshire.
That was Triple H. Voting repeatedly.
And his mom, yes. Today's question for the weekend is, what did you think of SmackDown? A, excellent, B, good, C, average, D, bad, and E, awful. By the way, on any other news to get to?
I think that's it.
Okay. The EMLL pay-per-view, like I said, I enjoyed every match. You know what surprised me is how much I enjoyed the Perro Aguayo match. I mean, it was, I guess part of it is there was so much heat, and they really worked hard. I mean, Perro Aguayo did one tope, he did one, it was sort of like a dive off the apron. It wasn't particularly good, but it's like for an immobile guy. I mean, he did
jumped.
as good. What? He got off the ground.
Got in the air.
He got in the air. I mean, he did far more than you will ever see Hulk Hogan do in any 10 matches. And, Perro's a lot more crippled up than Hogan. And Universo, who's terrible, he did pretty good. The crowd heat was unbelievable because, and I mean, just watching it, and having watched Perro Aguayo for God knows how many years, but I mean, I remember watching Perro Aguayo 20 years here in California, God, in the 70s. So I've been watching this guy forever, on and off. And, it's supposed to be his last match, and the people believe it's his last match, even though, of course, it's not. It never will be. But watching this guy get his head knocked out, head shaved, and watching this crowd reaction, I mean, it was really, like, they had some really good matches on the undercard, and the main event, from an emotional standpoint, blew them all away. But the match for the Infernale's name, that was really good. Some of those guys, Rencor Latino's really good. Mr. Niebla's great. Shocker, great workers. Just so many great workers there. And, I don't know. Luckily, they didn't have any of those ex-WCW guys there because I probably would have cried, like I always do when I watch, like, Silver King or something like that in New Japan. And you just go, how come he did none of this in WCW? And you know the answer, so.
Yeah. Did you see the footage from EMLL of them having the referee in the ring explain the proper way to do the martinet?
Martinende? I heard about it. I did not see it. I haven't watched. I watched bits and pieces of the thing since it's on Tuesdays, and I don't tape it. I mean, I usually, for whatever reason, end up watching a lot more AAA.
Mm-hmm. It's just funny to watch them. They were working so hard to put this over as this was like a real, legit injury to this guy, and having the doctor right there, the X-rays of somebody's neck. I don't think it was Aguayo's, but someone screwed up.
It might have been. Hey, look, the guy's been taking bumps for 30 years. I'm sure if you X-rayed his neck, it would look hideous.
Yeah, I guess that's true. So, and I'm just thinking, look at all the injury angles in WCW that not only did they not make a big deal out of, but like we talked about yesterday, sometimes they didn't even show a replay of them.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Their idea of an injury angle was that garbage that Vince Russo did. Remember?
The what?
Where Vince Russo claimed that he had what did he claim he had? Remember when they took him off TV when he had the concussion? And they did this big injury angle. The brainurism, that was Ric Flair when he had that other. That's another story.
Oh yes, his heart attack or whatever the hell he had.
No.
The inner ear imbalance.
The unbalanced ear, right, when he fell down, and then his pulse was racing and everything. Yeah. No, this was the one after that when Vince Russo got taken off TV, and they did that skit. And remember they had like brain surgery or something. They tried to act like
yeah.
Oh God. Oh. That's why. That is why. There's your answer right there. Last night, and I know that you already know this, okay, Brian, but last night it was a letter, or was it a letter or was it a booking idea that somebody mailed me that I emailed to you, and I started reading this thing, and it just, the light bulb flashed, and it was like, Vince Russo ruined wrestling. I mean, he really did. This is the plan as of this morning as far as WCW goes, and it will probably change. I did this. This is so funny. I mean, I did this, like, detailed article in The Observer on Tuesday on where WCW was, talked to everyone over the weekend, status of different people, the whole bit, right? So mailed out on Wednesday, and when it's mailed out on Wednesday, it's actually accurate. And by the time everyone gets it, it's all changed again. I mean, but anyway, what happened was the decision has been made now, and this could change again, to do the TV tapings on Wednesdays as opposed to Saturdays. They've canceled all of the dates. There actually are no Wednesdays booked yet. They would like to start in mid-June, but it could be in July. And basically, I talked to Vince McMahon's office, and they said that the reason that we're not more specific is because Vince is not specific. I mean, it's like it's all being decided. Nothing is decided. Nothing is for sure. The 11-to-1 time slot on TNN on Saturday night is likely, but it's also not for sure. They don't have a start date officially. Jim Ross is down in Atlanta meeting with various people about stuff. But anyway, the situation is that the production people, I guess, were very, very unhappy. And I guess it's a lot better for the fans. It's a lot better financially to run these tapings on Saturday nights because, one, you probably will draw more people to a show on a Saturday night than on a Wednesday. Wednesday's a very tough night to draw, especially for a product
Monday
like
used to be.
If you have a hot product, it'll draw no matter what. And if you have a cold product, it's not going to draw on a Saturday. That's true. But all things being equal, Saturday is easier. Okay? Mm-hmm. Especially for something like this. Also, it would be, if it's taped on a Saturday, it's kind of, it's more immediate, although I don't think that's really a big factor for television at all. The fact that, I don't think SmackDown's ratings go up or down based on the fact that it's live or taped, because when Raw used to be taped, the ratings on the tape shows actually were higher than the live shows. So that doesn't really matter. But, and also it's cheaper because if you're flying people in for one show, you get the Saturday night stay over, and it's just a lot cheaper. However, the production people who are going to handle the show that work for WWF, Saturday is like the only day they really have off because Sunday they got to do Heat, Monday they got to do Raw, Tuesday they got to do SmackDown, and the idea of then during the week they got to prepare for all these shows. So really, those people, the only day that a lot of them had for their families was Saturday, and they were very, very unhappy about losing their Saturday nights, which I can imagine. I actually talked to some people during the week about the idea of if you're a wrestler, it's no big deal because wrestlers always work Saturday nights, but the people who aren't wrestlers who were realizing that if they work in production, it was actually production jobs for that show, that they would never have another Saturday night. And, if you're married, that could be bad. But anyway, it's going to be on Wednesday as of this moment. On Monday, it may be back to Saturday. So that's where it all stands. And start date, there is no start date officially, but timetable, like we said, sometime in June or July is what the hopeful timetable is. And that actually, I would suspect, would be finalized by the middle of the week. Let's see. What else do we have here? Is Simon Diamond's WWF developmental deal confirmed yet? Simon Diamond started this week for Memphis Championship Wrestling. He was told, and Dawn Marie went there with him, they were told that if they went down there, there's a good chance they would get a developmental deal. I don't believe they've actually signed one yet, but I think there's a good shot that they will get one. Let's see. Is Murray Hopper, who was just released, Bo or jacked up? Do you know which one that is?
That's a good question. I've been wondering for about 3 weeks.
I think it's Jack. I think. I could be wrong. Because are Hardcore Holly and Barbara Bush married? Yes, I believe they are. Do you know for sure?
Married? I don't know for sure about married.
Yeah. I don't know for sure either. I try not to know these things. But anyway, are Luger and Liz still a couple? Luger's married. I don't know if she is anymore. And not to her. Ken Shamrock and Ryan Shamrock. As far as, yes, they are. Billy Kidman and Tori Wilson, I'm pretty sure, yes, they are as well.
Not married, just together.
Together, right. So he said still couples, yeah. How old is Simon Diamond? I don't know how old Simon Diamond is. I think about 30, 31. Does that sound right? I think I read it somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Did the AWA fold or go bankrupt? It folded. Let's see. What have your experiences been like when you have talked to Roddy Piper? I asked because shows I've seen him on make me embarrassed to be a wrestling fan with his dumb-ass remarks. When he was on Politically Incorrect, it was a good example of stupidity. What are your thoughts on him? Roddy's a very interesting character, and I don't know what else to say. Another Roddy Piper one. I saw on Roddy Piper's website that he has a book out, and it's called If You're Gonna Die, Kid, Die in the Ring. It's good for business. Do you think this title's in bad taste in respect to Owen Hart and his family? I think that the title makes a point that he wants to make in his book about how callous wrestling promoters are. And I think that's the theme of his book. I don't consider that title in bad taste. I actually consider it kind of a cool title, to be honest.
I don't think the book's out yet, is it?
I don't believe so.
I thought he was writing it.
Yeah. I'm sick and tired of people talking about how Chris Jericho should be the next WWF main eventer. The fact is, Vince McMahon likes big guys. Chris Jericho's not a big guy. Nor is he tempted to gain muscle to make him look bigger. He has definitely attempted to gain muscle to make him look bigger. If you want him to gain any more muscle, do you want him to get cancer? Come on, don't say stupid things like that. He's not a big guy. He's not naturally a big guy. He's not unnaturally a big guy. He's just not going to be tall. But I hate it when people I don't mind when people knock guys' physiques that clearly don't go to the gym. But when guys clearly are going to the gym all the time, training hard, and they're just doing the best their genetics can give them and more, and then they get knocked because they don't look like Hunter, that's so screwed, It just gets me so mad because all you're doing is saying, oh, hey, why don't you take more steroids and growth hormone? You're not big enough,
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, at least Benoit and Angle have added muscle mass to their bodies. Repeat what I just said. Let's see. I have 4 candidates that can be claimed for the... Okay. Anyway, let's see.
One thing I was noticing at the end of SmackDown that kind of worried me was the very last scene going off the air is Undertaker down in the ring, Kane standing there looking angry, and then Hunter and Austin looking back at him, and I thought, it's like 3 years ago. Same guys. Same guys on top.
Well, Hunter's
maybe not so much
been...
Hunter, but it's the same faces.
Oh, yeah, Steve Austin, Undertaker, and Kane. Remember that feud? God, that feud took forever. I mean, and it did great business until they ran it into the ground, and now it's new again. Just Undertaker's not new enough. And Kane's a big guy, but, I don't know. I mean, and I don't dislike him, but he never.
I have nothing
really...
against Kane. He's a big guy and he tries hard, but I just don't see him as like a top guy.
He rarely has good matches. Very rare. I mean, he often has average matches. Sometimes has good matches. Almost. When was the last great Kane match? There probably never was.
Damn good question.
I think I remember.
Maybe when he interfered in that Michaels Undertaker match.
Yeah, I think I remember him having some decent ones with Austin, but I don't remember him having good ones with.
Remember, he even had bad ones with Benoit.
Yeah, he was the one. He did not have
Those
a good one with
guys
Benoit.
did not work well together at all.
He nearly killed him. I don't remember. Chris Pope's on the line. We'll get to him in just a second. I know that his matches with Angle. The one I remember seeing one live. It was hideous. It was terrible. It was one of the worst. Undertaker and Kane had the worst matches that Angle had all of last year, I think. Anyway, Chris Pope is on the line. Chris, how are you doing today?
Hey guys, how you doing?
We're doing really good.
All right, are you in the studio together?
No.
Oh, okay. It sounds like you guys are in the studio together.
Yeah,
I'm at Dave's house.
Okay. Oh, at Dave's house. Okay.
Chris.
Dog's barking.
Only if Shamrock shows up.
Okay.
Chris, I have not seen your book.
No one has, Dave. It hasn't come out yet. It comes out at the end of May.
Okay. Of course, I saw the first one, which was talking about collectibles. Why don't you tell everyone a little bit about the first book and a little bit about, basically you're doing a series of books on wrestling collectibles.
Correct. Yeah. The first one was Pro Wrestling Collectibles. I mean, it gets as straight as it gets, and it was basically designed to be kind of an introduction into this whole new phenomenon of wrestling collectibles, and we kind of went from the beginning to the end of, basically everything that's out there that someone can get their hands on and what it might be worth, and to try to add to that some of the history of wrestling, and that whole idea kind of is tied into this next project that we did. And when the publisher came to us and gave us the go-ahead to get another opportunity to write something, they threw this idea at us about doing something that traces more of the history than we got to do in the first book. So when they gave us this idea to kind of chronicle the first 100 years of wrestling, as we started to sit down and work on that and kind of hash out the idea, basically what we came up with was to chronicle as much as we could within the time and space that we have to basically reintroduce people to the first 100 years of wrestling. Basically not the first 100 years of wrestling, but from the early 1900s all the way to the current day, and try to tie with that some collectibles and whatnot. But this book really is more of a history book than it is just a showcase of the collectibles market.
Oh, really? History book. The thing about history is it's really weird about wrestling history is that up until the last, 5-6 years, there's been some history, largely tales told by people that get passed around from generation to generation, which means by the time we get them, they're probably so exaggerated and wrong.
Right.
And there actually has been, what I was going to say, in the last 5 or 6 years, there's been some people like Gary Will and J. Michael Kenyon and these guys that have really actually gone back and then there's a lot of them that have researched history, and a lot has been uncovered in the last 6 years that had been, from the previous 94 years or so, or most of the 94 years that was never there. But nevertheless, it's like what they're uncovering is newspaper clippings from the era. And the scary part of it is that, we all look at newspaper stories today on wrestling and we go, man, these are clueless.
These are horrible.
Right.
I know, and I'm just thinking, so we're learning, wrestling history is so impossible because, everyone is dead, and the people who wrote the stories had no clue because people have no clue about wrestling.
Right.
And the wrestlers who probably would be the most accurate versions because they were on the inside, or the promoters, are 90% dead, and then the only ones who are alive, like Lou Thez, are getting stories from other wrestlers, which may, even if he's telling the truth as he heard the story, that doesn't mean that the way he heard the story was
truth.
Right.
Yeah, he heard it from an old wrestler who's telling him about, we went here and we did this with this girl and we did this with this, you know what I mean?
Yeah, they're just tales that get changed through the years, correct, right.
Right, kind of like the tales that we get told.
Those are, that's part of the myth of, right. That's part of the myth of professional wrestling. There's so many things that people just don't really understand. I mean, the whole concept of, take one thing, for instance, the the concept of the NWA. Nobody really can accurately say what date was when the belt was changed, and when it changed over to WCW, and every book that I've ever read on wrestling, any attempt that's ever been made has really screwed that part of history up. And part of our attempt at doing this project was to try to set the record straight in that sense. I mean, we're certainly not, J. Michael Kenyon is a great example. I've been reading his stuff on the internet for a while now, and it's fascinating. And, we don't go to the lengths that he does. We have a certain number of pages that we can talk about wrestling with, but, that's kind of the idea, where we're trying to basically set the record straight. And we know that our market right now is our new wrestling fans. I mean, we don't deny that. So one of our thoughts was to try to reintroduce history to a lot of these new fans, to kind of get them to understand that there were people before Triple H and Steve Austin and The Rock. And this book
Not Triple H, though.
What's that?
Nothing.
No, right. Nobody came before him, right?
Not after him.
I mean, the idea of the book is kind of to draw a circle. I mean, I don't want to get too touchy-feely or anything, but it basically creates a circle that shows you that, Frank Gotch, Kurt Angle didn't come, just from off the tree. He came from someone like Frank Gotch, and we try to bridge the gap in that sense and show what happened between then and now, and just try to introduce that.
A lot happened.
Right. And then and with that, throw in some collectibles, and show people what things they could have bought back then, or what collectors are finding now from that time, and it's a pretty fun read.
Hey, what's the Danny Hodge Sports Illustrated worth?
That one is worth about close to $100 right now.
$100, okay.
Yeah.
I hope
and that was that was a pretty special issue. It was the first time a wrestler was ever on the cover of Sports Illustrated. Since then they've had Hogan made the cover in the early '80s, and for diehard collectors, those two covers, really kind of cemented in people's minds the legitimacy of wrestling, and for a long time wrestling was kind of a cult thing and never really got any mainstream publicity, but when a mainstream magazine like Sports Illustrated kind of legitimizes your hobby or your sport by putting someone from that sport on their cover, that's why it has become such a popular item.
How recent are the latest collectibles? Is it like up through the late 90s, or?
Pardon me?
When does something become collectible?
Well, I mean, generally a rule of thumb in any collecting, and not just wrestling collecting, but in any type of hobbies, collecting, whatnot, really anything less than 10 years old is just speculative, and you really can't pinpoint what something would be worth until at least 10 years expire. So right now you're seeing a pretty hot market on eBay and these online auction sites for things like the early action figures that the WWF and the AWA released in the early 80s. Those are, the prices for those right now are just phenomenal. I mean, some of a collection that was just sold on eBay for the early Remco dolls, the AWA dolls, and they have $1 is selling for $200 to $300 a piece.
Oh my God!
Yeah,
Vern could make a lot of money if he just put all the stuff he's got in his because they never sold out there.
He'd probably make the most money he's made in about the last 10 years. Yeah.
A lot of the old promoters that didn't make any money, if they had saved their videos.
Right.
That's my advice for everyone promoting wrestling. Save your videos. You'll make your money back someday.
Well,
someday there will be a market for those videos.
That's so funny that you bring that up, because I was just talking to a friend yesterday about that same thing, that Vince kind of has this corner on the market now. I don't know for sure, but I'm assuming that when he bought WCW, the video library that he has goes all the way back to the early TBS days, I would guess. Don't you think?
We don't know exactly how far it goes. It goes back to the 80s for sure. I don't think it has anything from the. I don't think they saved anything from the 70s, because when it came to that period, you know how the wrestling promoters were. Like Vern obviously saved a lot of his tapes, but most of the promoters saved very, very little. And it's funny because like in Japan on Samurai, those things are worth a lot of money now. Samurai's paying big money for, like if they could you imagine like some of those those old Kiel Auditorium matches.
Right.
But Mushnick never allowed TV cameras in because he thought that, like, hey, we don't televise our house shows. But those matches today, in the 60s and the 70s, in the 80s, those matches would be worth a fortune on the Japanese market and probably worth something on the American market as well.
Well, Vince is so smart in my mind, because my guess is that he would probably get at least some of the Crockett days. I would imagine some of the TBS stuff, the Crockett stuff that was on TBS. And you can tell that he's positioning himself to have the internet be the sole provider of all his content. Once the technology is there where, you or I can just log on to the computer and swipe our credit card through and get a pay-per-view, so he doesn't have to go through, these big pay-per-view companies. That's what he's positioning himself for and archiving these videos. But the sad thing is that a lot of these old promoters, even guys like Vern and, even I know for a fact some of the stuff in Memphis, they just used to, even as early as 5 years ago, they were still taping over it. I was down in Memphis one time and we saw Larry Burton, and we went into his apartment.
That was scary.
Yeah, it was.
I may have
Mike Samples and Flash Flanagan were there, and we're just sitting there, and they're doing the promos for Louisville and Evansville and whatnot, and they're taping over, what I would consider priceless tapes. Like a Funk and Lawler match or something like that, and they're just taping over it to send their syndication.
Oh, that's
out.
so stupid.
And that's what I'm trying to say.
For 3 or 4 years ago, that's stupid. When they used to do that every week in the 70s, but nobody knew in the 70s. And a few years ago, they should have known better than that.
Right. And Vern did the same thing when he was in his dying days and he was trying to, cut the budget as much as he could in the early 90s. He did the same thing. It was, taping in Rochester, Minnesota, and taping over his old stuff. And fortunately, he had saved a lot of it.
Tape?
What's that?
How much is a tape?
One of those tapes, it's like $50 for those kind of tapes. They're not like the dollar tapes that we buy.
I know, but still, you got to be. Oh, jeez.
Yeah. Unfortunately, he's got a lot of his stuff, and some of the AWA materials they're re-airing it on satellite right now. But there's so much stuff out there that if you think about old LA territory or where you are, Dave, and Portland,
there's almost no old San Francisco tapes. I'm sure Don Owens didn't save any of those Oregon tapes of like Roddy Piper and Buddy Rose, which I don't know if there'd be a huge market for it, but someday.
Well, I certainly think there'd be a market where they can make some money at it.
Someday you'd be something where you can make money. Yeah. Let's see.
By the way, just look at the differences with Vern taping over videotapes while WCW losing $60 million, destroying $50,000 video cameras.
Not a lot of foresight there.
As usual, there should be something like a happy medium, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. We go from the penny pinching days of
they could destroy a videotape instead.
At least when Vince does it, he saved, like when they destroyed that Corvette, at least he saved it and put it in his museum or whatever.
Yeah, he used all that for the museum.
Yeah, but okay.
Like the access deal.
Okay, here's the thing. Vince McMahon last year made $87 million in profits. This year he's not going to make nearly as much, although if he didn't have the XFL, he'd actually made more. Mm-hmm. But Vince McMahon still this year will make $29 million in profit. Okay?
Right.
So whatever he does, if he wants to throw money away and he still makes $29 million in profit, then that's cool.
Yeah.
But somebody who's losing $60 million to be bashing up cars for 1 second of airtime, that's just plain dumb.
Well, they were still living in the time where they were still living like they were making money hand over fist. They still believed that they were the promotion that that had the NWO and they could basically do whatever they wanted each week. And unfortunately, their bank book wasn't showing that.
There would be a time if I was running the company where they were going you're starting to lose money. I would start thinking, okay, let's try to preserve the bottom line while not gutting the product itself. Mm-hmm. Instead, they gutted the product itself while wasted money on these ridiculous things that meant nothing.
Right.
They thought that fans, a brief glimpse of dropping a car, is more valuable than a wrestler's contract. And they made those decisions because they cut guys because they needed them,
It's Shock
whatever.
TV.
Shock, yeah.
What is Crash TV?
Crash. The
Didn't
ratings
they release
crash.
Crowbar that same week that Canyon dumped over the limousine?
Yes.
We should have brought that up yesterday. I totally forgot about that.
Yeah. We did bring it up when it happened. Many times. I want to mention real quick that you can pre-order Chris's book, Eddie Yada. You can click on the shopping link on the media player, so you guys can pre-order the book. Let's see. This is from Jim, who goes, do the writers who do TV actually write out a screenplay for each show, or do they come up with some basic outlines that they tell the wrestlers? I mean, they basically write a script, you know. I mean, it's not necessarily word for word. I mean, WCW was word for word on the interviews, which is why the interview sounded like bad acting. With WWF, I mean, the guys who are good wrestlers are pretty much, you know, like guys who are good talkers. I mean, they're pretty much given, okay, these are the bullet points, and they frame them the way they do it. It's not scripted word for word what you're going to say, but you kind of go over it. But I mean, as far as, you know, it's pretty detailed.
See, that's what you need to
charge too. Russo was more of the read this exactly word for word, whereas probably Bischoff is just like go talk.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. See, I mean, you know, in scripting guys word for word, that's such a mistake. I mean, part of the mystique of wrestling is let these guys, you know, do things off the cuff and, you know, do what comes naturally. I mean, you don't nurture that person's character when you're telling him exactly word for word what he's got to say. You know, the idea behind developing a character is to make this guy believe who he is, and, you know, then that person can add his own personality to it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, that's like, you know, look at Steve Austin or Triple H or The Rock. I mean, I would not guess that their promos are done word for word. They're allowed to, you know, add their own personality into it, and that's what makes them so special.
Okay, is it possible that sometime during the Shane McMahon Big Show match that Booker T could show up and help Shane? It's possible, but highly unlikely. We require Booker T to make 2 deals within a week, which is possible.
Yeah.
It's possible it could happen, but the odds are against it. I mean, the odds as of a week ago were against Booker T even being ready by June. So being ready by April 29th is going to really push it, but it's not impossible. This is someone who says Inoki must be stopped. Enough with this work shoot crap that Inoki is selfishly using to try to create some phony legacy, because apparently his true legacy still isn't enough to subdue his colossal ego. Actually, believe it or not, he has. While there is truth to that, Inoki has a vision of what he thinks pro wrestling should be, and let me point out that no one else in the world has that vision, but he does, and it is consistent with his vision. You know, I actually sort of talked to him about it, and I mean. You know, I mean, he's got that 70s mentality that we got to make it real, and the way to make it real is you have the wrestlers beat the shoot fighters, and you make the real people the guys on top, and you make it credible, and he's very tied to that thing, and that's what he's trying to do, and I don't know, I don't think it's working, but
hey Dave.
Yes.
Can I ask you a question? I've been really into this Pride stuff, and I just got this tape, the Pride show that has Ken Shamrock against Fujita on it.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, and what was the deal with that match? Did Shamrock really give up, or was it a work, or what?
We've been trying to get Shamrock on the show for a long time to tell us that answer, and
ever since August.
Shockingly, he's never showed up.
He was dominating that match. He was kicking his ass.
He was killing him. It was actually the best that Ken Shamrock ever looked in a fight against such a tough opponent, because, you know, I mean, Fujita is a real tough guy, and he was eating him alive. He nearly knocked him out 2 minutes into the fight, and he just ran out of gas.
Right.
And when he ran out of gas, he just quit. He just goes throw in the towel. Huh. I mean, it was not a work.
So maybe he was afraid that he was going to get knocked out then, and make himself look bad, if he ran out of gas like that.
I mean, I think he started. You know, he just ran out of gas. That was just. It was very, very weird.
I thought that was a hell of a show, though.
That was great Pride. Oh yeah.
I mean, the Gracie Sakuraba match was really my introduction into Pride, and I mean that stuff just blew me away. It was great. I'm such a fan now.
Yeah.
Hey, how about this for a theory? Yes. Rainey beats Nagata.
Oh God, no! It will never happen.
Because then you could have Fujita versus Rainey for the IWGP title in a real fight.
Do you know they're talking about putting Fujita in with at the Pride? Is Takayama from Noah. So remember I told you that they had to protect him? No, that's how they protect him. By putting him with another pro wrestler. Let's see. It says Hogan was never so megalomaniacal that he wanted to make himself out to be the world's greatest shooter. You know what? I think he did want to. It's just that it just was too silly.
He had no opportunity.
No, but when Hulk Hogan, I mean, I remember him on Jay Leno once. And this was during that period when he had quit the WWF. And it was before he went back to WCW in 1994. So this is, during this, what was the name of that show he did with a boat? The super boat?
Thunder in Paradise.
Thunder in Paradise, right. Okay. So he's just during the Thunder in Paradise days. And, Hogan was out there, and Hogan was basically saying, WWF is all work, right? And he goes, now what I do is I go to New Japan, and New Japan, it's not sports entertainment, it's real sport, and they have all their Olympic athletes there, and it's really tough, but, I beat them all. He said that right on TV, and I'm going like, oh my God. So yeah, he did try to make it out like if it was real, he could beat everyone too.
And don't forget Vince beating Shamrock in the Octagon.
And he took down Angle too, remember?
Yes, he did. That's right.
Took down Angle. Imagine. Well, we just talked about the guy DuPont, who killed David Schultz, who's not the pro wrestler David Schultz, but a very famous amateur wrestler David Schultz. DuPont used to wrestle these amateur guys. He funded these guys. I mean, that's, Kurt Angle. In fact, Kurt Angle was funded by DuPont. And they all learned how to lose to DuPont. So he would think, oh man, I'm a world-class wrestler. I just beat, like Kurt Angle. Because that was the way that they would get more money.
Yep.
Sort of like weird prostitution. Doesn't sound like, Anyway, let's see. I just discovered your show. It's excellent. I just started to watch this week's Raw. This is someone from the UK because they get it on Fridays. It really makes me wonder if the writers can keep a decent standard of work with the launch of WCW. So far tonight, I have serious doubts. I hope SmackDown's better. Actually, I thought Raw was pretty darn good until the last match. And the last match was a well-worked match. It was, not a well-worked match, but it was a decent match. Just the storyline left a lot to be desired. The way it was worked left a lot to be desired. Who is Darkness Dragon? How good is he? Brian, is Darkness Dragon Brett Como?
I don't think he's Brett Como.
Oh, okay. That's what I thought it was. Okay, then I don't. If it's not, then I don't know who it is. Let's see. Could you give an example that would show why all wrestlers think Ming is so tough? Didn't he pull Jesse Barr's eye out?
Maybe it is Brett Como.
Okay.
Someone can email in.
Yeah. He pulled Jesse Barr's eye out. He bit somebody's nose off. What else has he done? I remember there was a time in Illinois where the wrestlers, they were at some bar, all the WWF wrestlers, and it got out of control. There was a big fight, and all of them were fighting. And then these cops came in, and the cops were like, tying up all the wrestlers, and there was and everything. And then these cops came after poor Ming, and it was they hit all of these cops, and he's just throwing them one after the other all over the room. You know what I mean? So Ming, he was a tough guy. I mean, I don't know that he could go in the Octagon and beat Mark Coleman, but he's a tough guy.
That kind of happens less and less now, doesn't it? Where wrestlers are legitimately getting into trouble outside the matches.
I think there's two reasons for it. I think number one is the wrestlers don't have the mentality. I think that the wrestlers don't have the mentality that they have to protect the business, which in the old days, that was clearly how you were indoctrinated. If someone starts a fight with you, you better beat him up and beat him up bad, or else you're exposing the business.
Right.
And then also, I think the fans don't look at wrestlers in the same way, because it's like like a drunk guy would go, oh, I'm going to beat up one of these phony TV wrestlers. And I think that now people I think that there's such big stars that those same people would go, oh, please sign my autograph, rather than I'm going to go beat you up, Yeah,
I think the last time that happened was when Shawn Michaels got into a fight up in.
Yeah, but that was different. I think that's Shawn. I think he probably rubbed somebody the wrong way. I don't think that was an out of nowhere occurrence. You know what I mean?
Right. Right.
Guys
you hear more about fights and this behavior in WCW because they had nobody that would do anything more than suspend them over 4th of July weekend with pay. Whereas in WWF, if you get in a big fight or beat someone up and it's all over the newspapers, you're screwed.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
I think the guys have so much more to lose now, like you're saying, Brian. They have so much to lose that it's not worth it.
Yeah.
Just stay away. They probably don't even have time to go out after the matches, I would think.
No, they still do. But I was gonna say, it still happens though. You know what? Because remember, there was that guy at Nassau that tried to pick a fight with the Giant.
Mm-hmm.
Paul White.
Yeah.
And there was
that
thing
was WCW though, right?
When he was but Shamrock, when he was in WWF, somebody tried to do something there, and but he ended up getting sued. So I think a lot of the other wrestlers also is in the old days. I think that if a wrestler was challenged to a fight, they would salivate, look for the opportunity to pull the guy's eye out. You know what I mean? Now, because of lawsuits,
Scott Steiner.
But that's Scott Steiner with Paige. It's different.
Steiner.
Okay. But he's doing it with other wrestlers. Although Scott Steiner, remember the Scott Steiner bar thing? He was at some bar and it was getting out of control, and Scott Steiner beat a whole bunch of guys up. So, but
Yeah, I mean, it used to be a regular occurrence where guys like Harley Race or,
Larry
Dutch
the
Mantel would, every night that they would go out, someone would be looking for a fight, especially down south.
Yeah, Dick the Bruiser. I mean, Dick the Bruiser probably had 1 million of those kind of fights.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
See, I mean, it's hard to compare the legitimacy of, your toughness, when you're comparing a guy like Meng who, is a tough guy, but when you compare that to, Dick or Harley, guys who were, had to fight every night when you go out for a beer, And that's tough.
I mean, I remember, was it Brody, saying that, when he was, he used to get into a lot of those fights, and then when he got older, he realized that, you accomplished nothing, and then when a guy would challenge him to a fight, as he got smarter, and go oh, you're not so tough, I could beat you up, and he would, his reaction always was, you probably could, here, let me buy you a beer, and there was never a fight.
That's classic.
Which is probably a smart way to do it, but when he was younger, or if somebody said that to Dick the Bruiser, you know what I mean, goes,
right.
I'm tougher than you, and it's just oh no. There we go again. Let's go to Ed in Texas. Ed, what's going on?
Yeah, Dave, what I'd like to talk about, since we're talking a little bit about history, is I want to ask about some certain legends in wrestling, and I would like for you to tell me if they're legends because they were that good, or is because they were promoted that way. And some of the legends would be, from Japan, would be Ricky Dozan, Inoki, and Baba.
Okay, well, they all owned their companies. So, I mean, if you're wondering, Ricky Dozan was a tough guy. But as far as, by today's standards, none of the guys in the 50s by today's standards would be great workers. The workers evolved so much. But in the 50s, a lot of the top guys kind of got their spot because they were tough. And I don't know, that Ricky Dozan was a pretty tough guy. I mean, as far as...
But what exactly do you mean by legend?
Well, like those three names,
they're the names
when you think of Japan, those are the names that you think
Yeah, those are the three biggest names of all time.
Yeah.
Ricky Dozan, Inoki, and Bob. What?
Are you talking about, for example, at WWF Hall of Fame, there are guys in there that they consider legends that really aren't?
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Okay. Well, those three are definitely
John, isn't Johnny Rodz in the Hall of Fame and he was just a preliminary guy?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but if you're talking about that, but as far as Bob and Inoki and Ricky Dozan were super, draws and legends and all that. But as far as, great technical wrestlers, Inoki, no, it was not nearly as good as his legend. Bob obviously was nowhere near as good as his legend, and obviously neither was Ricky Dozan.
Okay.
Few of them were. If you're comparing them to say Ric Flair, no, not at all.
Okay. Yeah, because before, when people would talk about Inoki, I would always think that, he was probably the greatest Japanese wrestler until I started listening to your show. And then I found out that, he wasn't.
Not in the ring. Legend-wise, him and Ricky Dozan and Baba, certainly stand up. As far as cultural names, that'd be like Hulk Hogan in our country.
Yeah.
But to a much greater degree. It would be really unfair to, when people say,
but they would be closer to Hogan than, say, Luthez.
They're closer to Hogan than Luthez, yeah. The Luthez would probably be who would be like a Luthez in Japan? Jumbo Tsuruta, maybe? Maybe Jumbo Tsuruta?
Right.
Yeah.
And also, let me switch over to Mexico. How about, what are your opinions on Mil Mascaras and El Santo?
Mil Mascaras, for his time, was, if you're talking about the early 70s, he was a phenomenon. He was a big guy with a good body who could do a lot of high flying that everyone copied. Again, by today's standards, no. If you look back at a tape now, because it's evolved so much, who else were we talking about besides Mil Mascaras?
Santo?
Santo, even Santo's friends will tell you that he was never a great. He was a good wrestler by their standards, but he was never a great wrestler. Everyone will tell you that Gory Guerrero and Blue Demon were much better than Santo, but Santo was far more beloved than them. He had it. Whatever it is that makes people like. It's like he was probably like The Rock.
He's a movie star.
He was a movie star.
Okay.
But certainly, there are guys, especially like Santo and Baba, who were, promoted that way. Whether or not they, like Baba, if he owned his company or not. But, he was popular because he was an anomaly. He was popular because he was big and
he was the Japanese giant.
Yeah, he was the Japanese giant.
He was a giant in a country of small people, and who was a baseball star, not a star, but a baseball player. And that's what he got. And Santo and Baba are probably, wouldn't you say they're probably the two most loved wrestlers, I would think, of all time?
Yeah.
Yeah, in their respective countries.
Just look at the funerals.
Yeah, Ricky Dozan maybe. Because Inoki was bigger than Baba, but Baba was much more loved than Inoki. Inoki's more revered like a god, but Baba was really loved by the people. And Santo, I think, was probably more loved by the people than any wrestler ever. I would think no one ever came close to him.
But a guy like Luthez probably deserves to, stand alone, and he deserves that acclaim as, being a legend. Don't you think? I mean,
of course he does, just for his longevity, and also, he went everywhere. I mean, he was a legend, and everywhere. Like he was a star in Mexico. He was in Japan. I mean, Luthez, Ricky Dozan. To this day in Japan, everyone knows Luthez.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So and he went, England, everywhere. Let me get to a couple emails, and we'll get right to the phone calls right after this. This is from Harry Simon, who goes, not to be morbid or anything, but I just realized that today is 2 years ago to the day that Rick Rude passed away. For my money, Rick Rude was the greatest wrestler to have never won a world title. So that title that he held doesn't count? Remember that one?
Yeah, sure, the international title.
Was that not a world title that year?
Right,
I guess it wasn't. It was WCW. Oh, it wasn't because... Okay, when he was
because of the deal with Japan.
The NWA wouldn't approve it. The NWA wouldn't approve it, so WCW had to change it to International World Title.
Right.
Because instead of NWA. So, but when Rick Rude, they sort of called it a world title.
It was the world title. I mean, I don't think anybody really disputes that. It just had a different name.
Okay. Well, then he wouldn't be. Because who, if not, who would you think would be the greatest wrestler who never won the world title? When I was a kid, they used to always say that about Johnny Valentine. And Johnny Valentine was obviously a star for far, far longer than Rick Rude ever was, but, it's hard to compare eras.
I mean, the thing about Rick Rude was he was at the time, he was the company's main man and had the strap. So, it's kind of hard to dispute that, just because the name was different, that he wasn't really the world title.
But they had another world title in the company at the time, too. Because there were two of them, and they were building up to the unification, which ended up being a Hogan-Flair match. It was a Flair-Sting match that Flair won, and then Flair is unified, then lost it to Hogan in '94. That's what it was. I mean, I would sort of say Benoit, but I know he held that title for a day. Remember he had it? So.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know if he'll ever get a chance to hold another world title. Hard to say.
Hard to say. It is. It's from Mike Johnson, who goes, I hate dumbass guys that write in and talk about people like Jericho. Look, Jericho works hard and deserves everything he gets, and the only reason... He mentions a whole bunch of names of big stars in wrestling. Look like they do is because they all take steroids. And I will say that every name he put on that list definitely does. Let's see. I loved Crowbar. Wish you could get the current wrestlers on. Isn't there someone you could talk to about it? Yeah, right to Vince. Let's bombard him with emails. That's what we should do.
Let's
That'll
do an
work.
email campaign.
Yeah, well, I'll email him, and that'll make him real happy. Just like Lawler, Anyway, let's start with, was it Matt in Pennsylvania? Matt, you're up first.
Hey, Matt, I'm Dave. This is Matt from Pennsylvania. I met you back in 1996 at Big Ass Extreme Bash. You remember the famous Mysterio Guerrera?
I love that match.
Falls?
Were you
You know which match I'm talking about?
Oh, I remember that match live. That was an awesome match, yeah.
Yeah, I was wearing the Juventud Guerrera mask.
Oh, you're the Juventud Guerrera guy. I remember the ring? Totally.
Yeah, I can barely hear you, though. I'm on a phone. Anyways, what I wanted to ask you about is, I was talking about, I was reading the, April 6th, Tijuana show with, Santo and Psicosis.
Yes.
The problem is, we read about all these things, and, you were talking about tapes earlier, and, do you know anybody down there taping the shows anymore?
I know that there's tapes. Okay. I got a tape of it. Now, as far as how I got the tape, I couldn't tell you how I got the tape because I know who sent it to me, but I don't know how they got it.
Okay.
But obviously someone is still.
Is it possible?
Someone at least taped that show. I mean, I don't know if Ron Rivera tapes or.
Ron Rivera is working on the Nikki show, so he does not go down there very much anymore.
Okay. I don't know.
You can't possibly give me the name of the person that taped the show. Are they a dealer or what? Or
no, it was actually a wrestler that gave me the tape, so I don't know where he got it from. I don't know what channels he went through to get it.
Okay. Yeah, that's like the big problem. I really don't know any dealer that gets down there anymore or anything like that. But going over your match of the year listings, got a match for you that you might want to look out. It was from August 14th. It was a Michinoku match. It was a 6-man with Ricky Marvin, Super Dragon, Simo Nobunaga in it and everything. It's an easy 5 stars, and I don't think anybody saw it. And I know a lot of times people neglect to watch Michinoku and Torimon and all that stuff, but that might be a match for like all your listeners out there to hunt for. It's on a samurai tape or something along those lines, but I believe the date of it was August 14th. And one other thing, have you had any contacts for anybody that went to any Revolution Pro shows? The Ron Rivera shows. It's the same group that produced Blitzkrieg.
Yeah, I know those guys.
There's a couple guys down there that are really worth mentioning. There's a kid down there, Super Dragon. He was being looked at from WCW, but
I remember that.
Yeah,
there were two of their guys that WCW was going to bring into a dark match, but there is no WCW.
Yeah,
contrary to popular belief, but there actually is no WCW.
Yeah, it was Super Dragon and Rising Sun, but the kid Super Dragon, he did a few tag matches down in Tijuana with Blitzkrieg, and he's every bit as good, if not better, and that's really saying something. So
wow.
I don't know. So then you just know the shows down in Tijuana are being taped, but you really...
I only know that show was taped because I have a tape. I don't know that all the shows are being taped now or not. I would presume that I haven't even heard of any of Peña's shows that are down in Tijuana being taped.
Okay,
so I don't know.
Would you give the match, like 4, 4.5, or what, or...
Santo and Psicosis?
Yeah.
4? 4? Not more than 4. I would not call it a match of the year by any means, but it was really, really good. It was very enjoyable match. There were matches on the EMLL pay-per-view that were better. The Infernales match that match was awesome to me.
Okay. What about Ray Hoovy? What'd you think?
Ray Hoovy was very good. I mean, 3.5 maybe.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Ray Hoovy was a really, really good match. It was like if they did a 10-minute match on American television, because it was very Americanized style.
Uh-huh.
I mean, they didn't miss any moves, but it was 10 minutes, while the Santo match was 29.5 minutes.
Yeah.
So it was more of a, there's a lot more mat wrestling in the Santo match.
Mm-hmm.
Psicosis really did a great job in that match, though.
Yeah.
Or Nicho, actually.
I am a really close friend of Juventud, and we speak, maybe, every other week, something along those lines and everything. There's something going on with him, maybe with Combat Zone.
Really?
In May or something, you reported in the Observer.
I mean, I didn't report that he was going, did I?
There was a line maybe about 2 weeks ago.
Maybe that they were going to try to get him in. Yeah, I do remember that.
Okay, do you have any possible dates or any confirmation on that?
No, and I would, if it was confirmed, I would know about it. So
okay.
No, but I would presume they're trying to bring him in for May 18th and 19th, because that's when they're trying to do some big junior heavyweight tournament.
What's the date of that? May 19th?
May 18th and 19th.
May
when they're trying to do the junior heavyweight tournament.
Okay. Well, I asked him about it and everything, and he hadn't had everything finalized about it and everything, and I'm going to talk to him sometime next week, and he let me know, so we can hook up and hang out and stuff like that, so that's really cool and everything. So I hope he gets in here. Since the whole WCW thing fell through, you don't get a chance to see some of these guys, and you were talking tapes earlier, and I thought, well, I'll call in and see if anybody's, still after the, has any of the Tijuana shows and all that stuff. So, anyways. Okay, thanks a lot, and take care, okay?
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, Dave, they may have some luck trying to find, I think there's handhelds from Tijuana, and there's a chance that RF Video may have something like that.
Yeah.
So they may want to look there.
Yeah, they may have a lot of those. This is for Chris, who goes, how much can I get for an original DDP shedded skin? Oh, sorry.
God.
I tried. There's someone who goes, is the original Sable Playboy issue worth anything?
Yeah, definitely. It all depends on finding the right person, but something like that, old magazines like that, particularly a feature issue of something like Playboy probably would be in right now about the $35 to $40 range.
That sounds about right, because that's what I sold my copy for.
Okay.
That was a used copy.
No, copy, brand, and I know I'm going to get killed for this, spanking new.
Oh, boy. What is the estimated value of the ladder from the WrestleMania 10 Shawn Michaels Scott Hall match? That's an interesting question.
That is an interesting question. I don't think I've ever heard of a ladder being sold. That's a really good question. I don't have the answer for that. I don't even think you could find something like that. But if I were to take a guess, just judging on what, like something like what a belt is worth, belts are generally, in the $3,000 to $4,000 range. So I would say, about $500 to $1,000 for a ladder, something like that. Some fan would buy that.
How would you confirm that it was the actual ladder, though?
Huh?
It would have a seal of authenticity on it signed by Shawn Michaels, and you couldn't.
Or maybe a blade underneath it or something. I don't know. Maybe
That's so fun. Yeah, you do this. I bet you that there's going to be some con artists like they do at the baseball collectibles. And they're coming in with a ladder and go, this is the ladder from the Tables, Ladders, and Chairs match at last year's WrestleMania.
Well, I was just reading something. I think it was on eBay. Somebody was selling paintings or something like that. That they just they took a painting and then forged some dude's signature and auctioned it off on eBay.
There's a WWF auction site that they have now that they sell a lot of ring-worn material. They actually sell steel chairs too from their pay-per-view shows, and those things, believe it or not, are getting like $300 to $500 in that range.
Oh God, that's why that company's making money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They'll make money off any idea that they have.
Yeah. Let's go to Sean in Texas, which I don't think it's the famous Sean, but anyway, what's going on?
Yeah, how's it going, guys?
Good.
Oh, pretty good.
Doing all right. I had something to bring up, but he just happened to mention the Sable Playboy.
Mm-hmm.
Out here in Dallas, I was flying back home to Orlando, and out of nowhere, I happened to have it in my backpack. I swear, I run into Sable, right? I hand it to her to sign the Playboy, and who's with her? Mark Merrill. So Mark Merrill has to sign it as well and ruined everything. It would have been just totally Sable. He's like, oh, you want one too? With his little voice. Ruined it. What I called about, though, I read this on online somewhere. What do you think about the possibility of a 3-hour Raw show, and would that help maybe make the matches a little longer? Because I hate these 2 minutes.
No.
All you would get is double the amount of 2-minute matches.
Right.
Yeah.
Really?
And they're, I mean,
you remember those Nitros, though, where it was decent, the Malenkos versus Guerrero matches?
Yeah, but in the end, it bit them in the ass, and I think the WWF knows that. And also, I just don't think that they want that kind of a workload, because the thing is like they do a 3-hour pay-per-view, and I think 2 hours on Monday and 2 hours on Thursday is plenty of TV to produce a week. In fact, it's too much, and I think that they think that also. So I just don't see them expanding past what they have now.
Okay, and also, do you think the buy rate's going to be any good on Backlash? Because I'm a hardcore fan, but I mean, that just doesn't interest me. I think Triple H and Stone Cold will definitely win the belt, and then what are they going to do with that,
Be dominant.
Yeah, I know.
As far as, I think that this is like the bottom. Like, this will be the lowest buy rate of the year. I'm almost sure. So we'll find out what that bottom is. I mean, the bottom might be a 1 buy rate now. I mean, they haven't done.
I think it's going to be lower than usual, but I don't think it's going to like plummet or anything like that. I mean, just watching like the pop, and I know this is stupid because we talk about the pop all the time and how it really doesn't mean a whole lot, but when Undertaker and Kane won those titles, the crowd went crazy, and they're going to be pushed as the 2 top baby faces. Hunter and Austin obviously are pushed as the 2 top heels. We got all the belts on the line, and I just think that people are going to end up buying it.
Well, it's funny you mentioned the pop for Undertaker and Kane. Some of the hottest crowds are in Texas. I just went to that Raw the day after WrestleMania. They went absolutely berserk for Billy Gunn. Like, online, everyone hates Billy Gunn, and then I read these arena reports, and it's true. The second his music hits, they go absolutely nuts for him, even though he's horrible.
I think they just like the song.
I guess that's what it is. I mean, and then after a few beers, you hear something you recognize. I guess you have no choice,
that's the whole thing. I think that everyone that got Eric Embry, yeah. No, I think everyone who has very recognizable music, you know what I mean. You kind of get into it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's what they're dying for. I mean,
I don't know what their idea with Backlash is. The premise is supposed to be, the Backlash from WrestleMania. It's supposed to be a WrestleMania
revenge. Remember the old WrestleMania revenge tours and stuff like that?
Yeah,
they don't even do that.
Yeah. Well,
the one last thing I wanted to touch on, everyone's saying that the main event for even SummerSlam should be Austin and H. I say, why don't they draw it out some more for once? I mean, save it for next year, because I mean, what do you forecast for WrestleMania next year? I know the storyline.
Then Rock will be back.
The Rock will be back. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
But they're not going to do Austin Rock 3, are they? Because
I'm sure that's the plan right now. But a million things will happen between now and then. But I mean, that would be the most logical match. You have the 2 biggest guys, and this time you actually have a face and a heel, and you've got a face looking for revenge. I mean, if
they switch Hunter, though, that'd be a first.
If they switch Hunter,
if they switch Hunter by say around the Rumble or something, if they could hold off on that, I think the payoff would be a lot better.
I think there's a lot more money in Rock versus Austin than Hunter versus Austin.
You don't think Triple H could be a top face, or?
As long as Rock's not there, he can be the top face. If Rock's there,
maybe next year will be that three-way.
Yeah, or they could do yeah. Great.
I just don't see Vince doing the same main event that many years in a row.
He never has before, you know.
Yeah, but he always.
Wasn't that the first repeat main event ever?
No, okay, but here's the thing. He's wanted to. We've talked about this before. He's wanted to every year. It's just that circumstances always get. You know, Rock and Austin were supposed to do it, except Austin got hurt. Brett and Shawn were supposed to do it, except they both. You know, but you know what happened there. Almost every time he's done a successful WrestleMania. I mean, with Hogan and Andre, he repeated that on the next WrestleMania. I mean, the idea is to
you are right about that, yeah.
And repeat it. The only thing is that you know things have always gotten in the way, and it just doesn't happen.
And then I had a quick question for the fact guy there.
Mm-hmm.
What was the real reason? And Dave, you might know this. Whenever Flair was in '92, what was the real reason that he didn't fight Hogan in that WrestleMania? I still look back at that and think that was terrible.
Vince promised it to Sid, and Vince thought that big guys draw.
Really?
That's the reason. Yep. Vince thought it would be a bigger draw.
Have you ever seen him throw a right-hand punch? He's horrible.
Hey, every promoter closed their eyes.
Punch?
Oh, please.
Every promoter closed their eyes every time Sid threw a punch, and they just dreamed of his body or something. I don't know what it is because, man, you know, I mean, he stung for a lot of years, but you know, he got more chances than almost anyone but Luger.
You know, Sid just turned 40 years old.
I think 40 or 41.
Yeah,
I think he's really a year older than they say. So I think he's turned 41.
Okay. Because I mean, I can't imagine coming back from an injury like that at 40 years old to be productive. You know, at least by his standards, productive. You know, ring person.
Well, the problem with him is
I don't mean to be a jerk, but if he had been mobile before, I would agree with you. He was not. And therefore, I don't see why he couldn't come back and do the style he did before.
Yeah,
you know what you're just saying. What makes a lot of sense is do you know that like some guy like Flair, when he gets to be 50, it's kind of sad, and he's not the worker that he once was. But like the Sheik and Abdullah could go until they were dead because the fact is they never did anything when they were young, so you have nothing to compare them to.
That's true.
Yep.
We got tons of emails here and a full bank of calls, so let's get through a couple of these emails. This is from Sean, who says the Darkness Dragon of Tori Human is Brett Como, who was formerly Ultimate Dragon, as opposed to Ultimo, who feuded with Ultimo Dragon. Please explain the story in Gary Capetta's book where, in May 1990, Jim Cornette hit a 70-year-old man in the face with his tennis racket. I think the fan was like hopped the rail and tried to attack Cornette, and Cornette hit him in the face with a tennis racket, as I recall. And the cops were chasing Cornette. It was, I think, in Allentown, PA, because I remember Jim Cornette calling me up just as he got outside of Allentown that very night, telling me the story. It was anyway.
A 70-year-old man hopped the rail.
I don't know if he was 70, but it was an old man hopped the rail. But Cornette didn't. You know, he came from the blind side, right? So Cornette just sees a guy coming from like behind him. Or, you know, kind of like coming from behind him, like kind of peripheral vision. And, you know, he does that natural reaction, which is just turn around, hit the guy as hard as he can with the tennis racket. And he hit him like a zillion times. You know, it was like other wrestlers called it. I remember that night, one of the other wrestlers told me it was like Lizzie Borden. You know, like just whatever. And then they, you know, with the axe, right. So, but yeah, there were charges on Cornette. And Gary Capetta was really repulsed by it because Cornette kind of bragged about it because, you know, his feeling was once you cross the guardrail, it's your bound duty for being in the business to destroy the person that crossed the guardrail.
Well, I don't know so much if he should have been bragging about giving him the 50 whacks or whatever. If you jump the guardrail, good God, you're going to get whatever you get. Yeah, I mean, that's because that was what he was taught by, you know, Watts and everybody else. And, you know, other people were going, hey, he was a 70-year-old guy. And, you know, when he realized he was 70. But, you know, the one thing with Cornette, and it's not to defend him because, and, you know, Jim Cornette, obviously, everyone knows that he and I have been friends forever. But he does have a temper, and he does do some very crazy things when he's mad. You know, like when he bashed in Casey O'Connor's car window and drove that thing in Knoxville. I mean, my God, you know. Anyway, but when he gets going, I mean, he just gets in that frame of mind, you know. Yeah. So anyway, I heard you talking about Harley Race on today's show. Has he ever been on your show, or do you plan on having him on? Yes, he was on the show once before. Let's see. I was listening to you talk about tough wrestlers outside the ring. The person who comes to my mind is Dynamite Kid. After reading Pure Dynamite, I was amused at his story about Hogan backing down from him after being drunk and Macho Man asking Dynamite to watch his back while the NWA wrestlers were in a bar. The stories might even be true. They probably were. On DailyRadar.com, they have a list of the 5 worst wrestling injuries of all time. They're Mick Foley's ear, Yukon Eric's ear, Mick Foley's tooth, Bob Holly's arm when Kurt Angle broke it, and Sid Vicious' leg. What are your opinion about this?
there are guys who have died in the ring from wrestling injury, so a broken arm is not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
Guys have lost their eyes.
His tooth
guys have
fell out.
broken.
That's one of the top 5.
Guys have broken their necks. I mean, my God, what that Charlie Manson thing that you just saw on TV last night, Brian?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, there was a match here. There was a match here in Combat Zone about a week ago, here in Delaware.
I saw the Combat Zone match right before the show. That was sick.
Did you actually see it?
I just watched it right before the show. Yeah. Oh,
okay.
Jun Kasai's back. Oh my God.
Yeah, I haven't. I saw pictures of it. I haven't seen the video, but that was really the most disturbing thing in wrestling I've ever seen. It was just disgusting. I don't know.
What's disturbing about watching the matches is that, like, it'd be real easy for me to go on there and go, those guys don't know how to wrestle. But you know what? When you watch them, those guys really were not too. Those guys, like, all 4 of them were ranged from decent to good wrestlers.
Yeah.
But the idea was they brought all those weapons, and by God, they were going to use them. And like, they just took those tubings, those 6-foot light tubings.
Right.
There's one guy, like, jumped over the ropes, did a flip into the tubings on the table, and.
Yeah, I think, probably the stuff that they've done was not a lot different than what a lot of guys have done with the tubing, but, I think this match really showed
It was too much of it, though.
Yeah, the level of danger that can really be involved in it. I mean, there was a gouge in Jun Kasai's elbow that was...
Oh, that was so sick.
Yeah, it was phenomenal, and Nick Mondo's back. I don't think I've really ever seen anything like it before. It was... I just hate to see guys, put themselves through that just to, get a match
For
over.
what?
But, yeah.
Yeah. The amount of blood on Jun Kasai's back, it's just like this river of red on his back, and then like that thing right by his elbow.
Yeah.
Where you see the bone, you actually do see the bone sticking out because the skin is ripped. It is so, I'm watching this and it's like, I expected it to be so much worse as wrestling, and it wasn't. It wasn't bad as wrestling as far as like when they did the wrestling. But I mean, as far as like, why would you do this? Other than because we're all talking about it and everyone wants attention, but it was, oh my God.
Yeah, I don't know what crosses your mind when you really want to do that to yourself, but I mean, that's why I'm not a wrestler, I guess.
I just look at it as, hey, attention's great, but what's the payoff here?
Mm-hmm. Right.
I can imagine if you wanted attention because you had, this tremendous match and you wanted word to get to the WWF so they'd look at your tape, but, what's the payoff here?
Okay, this is from Troy Presley, who mentions six XFL players were signed today because the season's over except for the 2 teams. He goes, the sporting media has stated many times that the XFL is minor league football with awful talent and it's below arena and CFL. Actually, I don't think I have ever read, and I'm sure it's been written somewhere, but I've never read that it's below arena.
Yeah, I don't think it's below arena. Arena's, really, really poor.
Yeah, I've never read anywhere that it's below arena football. I've only read once or twice that it's below CFL. I mean, and that's from football people. That some have said and some have said that it isn't. But as far as below arena, I've never read that. It goes, the uninformed football journalists who have no knowledge of football talent or don't bother to check out the XFL rosters will now eat their words. Why? The biggest argument against the XFL has been it's not a legitimate football league with legitimate football talent. Without the XFL, these players don't get another opportunity to stick in the NFL. Some of them don't. That's true. I mean, there was something that I read today. Mike Keller, who's the director of operations, I believe, for the XFL, was bragging that of their 360 players, that 200 of them are going to get a shot in the NFL next season, in camp. At least in camp, right?
That's funny that you say that, because I was thinking the only guy that probably would, at least mainstream guy, was Tommy Maddox. Just because. Oh,
Avery will get a shot. I mean, Avery and the Copeland and those guys were going to get shots. I knew that from the second week of the season.
Yeah.
But the thing is, okay, a lot of them are going to get shots. But one of the things about Tommy Maddox that I also read today was, Tommy Maddox was the MVP of the XFL, and somebody was writing like, here's a guy who was, I think, selling insurance because he washed out of every other league and didn't want to play in the arena league because the pay is just so ridiculously low.
Mm-hmm, right.
And here he is, the MVP of this XFL. But I mean, the thing that
he was the number 1 draft pick. I mean, the guy was the number 1 draft pick at one point.
Yeah. Well, there was a Heisman Trophy winner in there too.
Right.
Yeah, but I mean, Brian and Avery was a high draft pick too, I think. I'm not a super big football fan, but Brian, who knows nothing about football, and I'm not saying this to knock him because he'll admit it. I mean, we were before the season ever started. If they make any stars, the next season they're going to be playing in the NFL. They are going to be the ECW of football. That's not a knock. That's just a reality statement. That is what they're turning into. ECW doesn't exist anymore either. And I mean, Vince wants to fund it. He can keep the thing going, but. That thing lost so much money this year.
The one guy that actually, more than a player, the person who may go on to some other endeavor, like in the NFL, is the coach of the LA team, Al Luganville. The guy actually coached like 3 World League titles. I mean, he's probably going to win the XFL title this year. He's never coached in the NFL, but I wouldn't really put it against anybody to bring him on as a coordinator somewhere, or maybe like an offensive line coach, something like that.
Okay, this goes. I do not mean to sound naive, but do wrestlers in the WF still take steroids? Yes. Isn't there a chance of Vince going on trial again? I mean, if Vince McMahon was involved...
Why is it illegal to employ somebody who takes steroids?
It is not illegal to employ somebody who takes steroids. Because if it was, every coach in the NFL would be in trouble, and every head of a wrestling company would be in trouble, and every guy who ran a bodybuilding show would be in trouble. As long as you're not involved in the distribution, where the whole thing, where McMahon was put on trial, was because of the belief that he and Zahorian conspired to get all these guys on steroids. And the fact is that if certain things had happened and not happened, it could have happened, but it didn't happen. And you can't you can't be convicted of something that you might have done, but you actually didn't do. And then in the one with the distribution to Hogan, I mean, it was just an embarrassing thing. That's all I can say is when you have this idea that a guy is distributed steroids that were sent on October the 18th. Okay, the deal is on the Hogan charge, and this was such an embarrassment that this thing went to court. One of the charges, one of the distributions, there was actually 2 distributions on Hogan, but the one that actually made trial that ended up getting thrown out, and they both got thrown out because of venue, because they could not prove that a crime took place within the district that he was being charged in, as opposed to that a crime actually took place, although I didn't have enough evidence for conviction anyway. But there was a charge that Vince McMahon gave. What we're trying to prove is that Vince McMahon got steroids from George Zahorian, okay, and then gave them to his limo driver, Jim Stewart, who drove from Connecticut to the Nassau Coliseum. And the key is the Nassau Coliseum is within the district that Vince was on trial in. Mm-hmm. So that gave them venue. And gave it to Hulk Hogan at the Nassau Coliseum. Okay, now the key to this was that the show at the Nassau Coliseum, that Hulk Hogan allegedly got the steroids sent by Jim Stewart to Vince McMahon, took place on October the 18th, 1989. The package was sent by George Zahorian to Vince McMahon on October the 24th, 1989. And it went to trial. And that was when that happened. Boy, was that sad. How did Rick Rude get injured in his match against Sting? Sting did a dive over the top ropes. They had a platform, and Rick Rude caught him. And in falling backwards against the platform, it was like on the middle to low part of his back, and his back basically cracked as he caught Sting, and Sting went down. So that's what it was. Let's go to John in Florida. John, what's going on?
Hey, Dave, I love your show, man. I really get some great information from you and Brian. You do a really good job, man.
Thanks very much.
Dave?
Yes.
Thanks.
Hello?
Yes.
Hey,
we're
can you
here.
hear us?
Okay, yeah, I'm here. I can barely hear you guys, so I'm going to try and see if I can go with this question to your guest. I have a collectible back in '91 when we had the Royal Rumble down here in Miami.
Yeah.
It was a title match between between the Warrior and Slaughter. I was talking about the ladder. What would that collectible be? I happened to be sitting on the corner side of one of the entrances where the wrestlers were coming, row 1, right on the corner when they would come into the ring. And when Savage used that scepter, the scepter bounced away. He had Sherry on the outside. It got kicked over to me, and I reached over and I grabbed the scepter.
Really?
Yeah. And then after when all the melee left, like Savage wanted to go grab the scepter, but because of his timing and everything, I guess it bounced away. They just left. And I thought like an attendant was going to come up and ask me, hey, we want the scepter back and everything like that. They never did, and there was an intermission after the match. So, and because I worked at that arena at one time, I found a way to slip out, throw it in my car, and then come back in without having anyone notice it. Now, it's been, more than 10 years, and if you look on the history, I guess, of the WWF title changes, although the way they're changing belts now, I mean, it's amazing. It should be like the only collectible that actually caused a title change hands that I can actually, verify that, A, I was there and, that I have the thing. How do you go about finding out the value of something like that, if there is such, such a thing?
You really can't have it appraised anywhere. There's no place like that. The only way to really get an idea of what it would be worth is to, put it up on a place like eBay. My experience in finding original items, not quite like that, but along those lines, something like that would be, worth quite a bit of money, actually. There would be several people out there who would be willing to have that. The hardest thing for you as a seller would be to, authenticated. But if you could, in some way, you've got a piece of gold, really.
Yeah, because and again, I can't find the ticket that I was at, but I do have the copy of the show and certain scenes, like when Savage came to jump over a guardrail, he went running right by me as he turned with that whole skit with Sherry and the Warrior begging for a title match and everything. Right. It was the wildest thing you ever seen. Hey, Dave, you do a great show, man. I always enjoy listening to you. Have a good weekend, guys.
This is from someone who goes, I've been watching Lucha Libre for about 6 months, and they have the dirtiest steroids down there. Who's the one guy with the worst acne? Scorpio Jr. Let's see.
He is not the ugliest man in the world, by the way. It is Emilio Charles.
It is Emilio Charles.
I did a comparison last night. He does have more acne, but there's no way he's uglier.
Yeah, but his dad is uglier than Emilio. Scorpio Sr.? That's the one who's billed as the ugliest man in the world.
Talking about acne, the next time you get a close-up of Crash Holly's back, you take a close look. You're going to see a lot of acne there.
He's still young. He may just be going through puberty.
Yeah, right.
I think he's like 31 or 32. Shh. He's been around for a long time out here.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Hey, look at the back of like half those WWF guys.
I remember reading about him in the early 90s, reading in the Observer about Aaron O'Grady, yeah.
You know, maybe just be taking so many bumps on that dirty mat.
That's probably what it is.
He was Johnny Pearson before he was ever Aaron O'Grady, too.
Yeah.
This is from Greg, he goes, I've been out of the country for a year. Now that I'm back, I want to know what happened to Jerry Lawler. Here's the quick version. They fired his wife, and in protest, he walked out, and that's the story. Let's see if there's anything else here. On the subject of legends, just to have an idea of who the Japanese love and hold in high esteem, all you have to do is look at the video game series Fire Pro Wrestling. God, people always tell me about Fire Pro Wrestling. Almost I've seen the commercials. The commercial for Fire Pro Wrestling on TV is so awesome. I just gotta say that it's the best video game commercial. I think. Well, it was the best. The Kurt Angle one where he goes in that hotel is actually better.
Yeah, that's funny.
Oh, that's just a tremendous one. And then the Rock one, there was a Rock one that's really good too. But before that, the Fire Pro Wrestling was the best. Anyway, almost every release has not only had Japanese legends like Inoki Baba and Ricky Dozan, but also people like Luthez, Carl Gotch, Funks, Bruiser Brody, Mil Moskowitz, Terry Gordy. The past releases have Destroyer, Dusty Rhodes, Dick Murdoch, and Fritz Von Erich. The fact that all these guys are in a current video game just makes me so sad to be a wrestling fan in America, because it seems while we forget our wrestling heritage from even 6 months ago, they hold these competitors in high regard, even in a game targeted for a younger audience. I will say that Acclaim is trying to come out with a video game with the Legends of American Wrestling. I don't know that it'll do well, but that's what they're trying to do. Let's go to Joel in Georgia. Joel, what's going on?
Hey, how y'all doing?
Doing really good.
George.
Yeah, I ran across y'all's show on another website, and I've been listening ever since. But I was going to call and say, y'all talking about the Ultimo Dragon? Mm-hmm. That's actually, he was saying Ultimo, it's Ultimo, which is Last Dragon in Spanish. Right. That's not what I originally called to ask. I was calling to ask about, what do you think they're going to do with that title, the one that Booker T supposedly has with the heavyweight in the U.S.?
They haven't decided on anything. They haven't decided on anything to do with titles. They haven't decided on anything to do with titles yet. If it fits into their storyline plans, they'll keep titles on certain people, but if guys aren't signed, they're not going to sweat it, and I don't know that they're going to go in there and do a bunch of tournaments. I don't know that they're not. I mean, they're trying to lay down a front office and then find out who they got and who they don't have, and at that point, they're going to start making booking plans. So it's all premature to even.
The fact that they told those guys to show up at WrestleMania with their belts means that I think that anyone who had a belt that's going to be signed will probably have it for the first show.
That's not the case anymore.
Oh, really?
It may turn out that way, but I actually talked to somebody about that a week ago, and they don't feel any need to continue any old storylines. They're going to start with whatever they want to do.
Even the world champion?
If they may not want a world champion in that group, that's been discussed as well.
Wow. Really? That'd be stupid.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I mean, if they don't have Booker T, what does it matter?
So I guess he just retire that belt, or.
I don't know, or they may put in a tournament.
What would everybody fight over if there's no championship?
Maybe U.S. title is the main title. Again, this all has to be decided. I mean, if they sign Booker T, if they sign Booker T, I would expect
that is total ego if they do that, and that's stupid.
Yeah,
no, that's with WWF, that's the real world title. Why have a title for WCW? Well, you own the company, so who cares?
Yeah.
Why is one title more important than the other if you own both companies?
Well, we'll find out what they do.
Yeah,
none of this has been decided yet. That's all.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Okay, let's go to Mike. Mike, what's up?
Hey, what's up, guys?
Hey, Mike, how you doing?
I had a question. A few years ago at WrestleMania, they were selling a piece of the mat, and for some reason or another, I bought one. How much do you think that would go for today?
I've seen those actually. Is that the one that's on a plaque?
Yeah,
Is it framed?
12, I think it was.
Yeah, they've sold a couple of WrestleMania editions of where they cut the mat up and put it on a plaque and sell it. Those things are. I've seen it from anywhere between 125 to 150.
Wow, almost
What,
what
for
I
the
paid
actual
for.
mat of the
But,
Undertaker-Sid match?
Yeah.
And Dave, what do you think about the XPW opening up in Japan? I heard they might do that.
Really? Why?
Yeah. It was on their website a few months ago about Onita was
Why would
telling
you? I don't understand why you would want. I mean, if you had a Japanese offshoot, I guess, but I mean, if the cost of going over there, I don't understand that.
Because I know they won the tag team titles in FMW, I think, a while back.
Yeah. They sent two of their guys who held the tag team titles for one tour, and then they lost them back. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, was it Homeless Jimmy and Supreme? Yeah.
And is that the last you heard about that?
I mean, they went over there. I don't know if they have a relationship with FMW anymore or not, because FMW's got their big show on May the 5th, and I don't think there's any XPW guys there on that lineup. I'm pretty sure. What?
What's the main event for that show look like?
I think it's Hayabusa and Great Sasuke against Tetsuhiro Kuroda and Mr. Ganosuke and Tenryu against Koto Fuyuki.
Oh, all right. Thanks a lot, guys.
Okay.
How much could a person get for Jesse Barr's eyeball?
I don't know. Is it enough to make Ming rich? This is from Sean Keys, who goes, "Today I was watching some old Ric Flair, Ricky Steamboat stuff, and I really got sad. First, I wish studio wrestling could make it nowadays. Well, Memphis was the last one, and it looks like it's not 100% done, but the general manager of the station doesn't want it. So anyway, I was watching Flair and Wyndham against Eddie Gilbert and Ricky Steamboat. God, I remember that match, January 1989. That match was tremendous.
Yeah.
Because it was great stuff. I loved the studio setting. It was weird seeing Tony Schiavone and JR both being younger. Yeah, it's 12
And
years
thinner.
old. And working together and thinner. And the funniest part was Teddy Long was the referee of the match with the worst haircut you ever saw. Well, he still had hair then.
That's saying something.
Yeah, let's go to Dan in Chicago.
Hey guys, how you doing?
Really good.
Hey, I got a trivia question for you, and I got a comment about wrestling.
Okay.
In '97, what was the theme song for Raw's War?
I don't remember.
I can't
Marilyn
hear
Manson.
you guys.
Marilyn Manson was the theme song for like 2 weeks until they got hit with that $60,000 bill. Yeah.
Yeah, it was Beautiful
The Beautiful People by Marilyn Manson. Yeah. That lasted like 2 weeks till the lawyers found out that they weren't supposed to do that.
Oh, really? So I was watching the WrestleMania, and then I have Raw afterwards. And let me tell you, that was the Bret Hart speech. The wrestling on there, I just did not like it. I don't know what it was. I just did not like that show. When I was going back from now to then, I guess
the wrestling, the caliber of the wrestling in WWF is much better than it's ever been in the history of that company.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, if I hear someone go like, "Oh, I remember the great wrestlers they had in the glory days in the '80s," you know, except for Steamboat and Savage and one or two other guys, none of those guys compare to these guys now.
Yeah, those epic battles between Jim Duggan and Honky Tonk Man. Yeah, I mean, I think the intensity has been really turned up a notch the last couple of years, and a lot of that is probably due to their pride. And I think a lot of guys like Austin and Triple H have a lot of pride in what they do when they go out there, and that kind of feeds to everybody else.
Yeah, I think the immediacy of the reviews and everything. Nobody wants to
have that worst match on the show.
Right.
Yeah, and except for Billy Gunn.
That's why China's still around.
Well, you guys really don't like Billy Gunn, do you?
That's why they brought those guys in for that battle royal, so China wouldn't have the worst match, but she still did.
She did it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was pathetic. That was such a disrespect for Ivory to have her job like that. It was really, really horrible.
Yeah, what's up with her attitude?
China?
I think they're going to try to turn her heel. Is the only thing I can think of.
Her outfit was kind of hot though.
She looks like such
really?
a
Glad you thought so.
I don't know.
Really? Oh, I don't know.
And two things. I'm not really buying the Austin heel thing because too many people are still cheering him. And
not
two,
that many now.
Huh?
But not as many.
Yeah, but he got a good pop when he was chasing Lita down the ramp.
Oh, that was awesome drama, though. There's something about that moment when he was coming down and she was going up.
Yeah.
Oh, that was a great moment.
Yeah, you guys like that?
Yeah.
I just thought, I'm like, oh god, they're cheering him. I'm like, I don't know.
There's going to be people who are always going to cheer Austin. I mean, people, just because they like him.
Kind of like the Hogan thing when he went bad.
Well, it's just not only that, but it's the nature of...
No, actually, not like that. But like Scott Hall, not like Scott Hall, because Scott Hall actually tried to get cheered, so that's not fair either.
Yeah. I mean, people are just, in tune to cheer heels anyways.
Maybe like Flair, when Flair used to go heel.
Around.
Yeah, when Flair went heel against Dusty in the mid-'80s, the people just wouldn't, like 50% of the people were always going to cheer Flair, even though, Flair did everything he could and was portrayed as like, the number one heel and Dusty as number one babyface. I remember there was a period where Dusty would not do an interview in the TV studio because the people would boo him so much, even though he booked himself as the total babyface.
Right.
And one last thing, and I'll let you guys go. I wish WCW, somebody would have stepped up and bought it, because now it's just like, for me, the state of wrestling is like, it's like, there's only one thing to watch now. I used to like flipping back and forth, wondering what's up with WCW, and now it's just like, there's only one thing to watch. When are things going to start to pick up?
I don't know that they ever will as far as real competition, because you got one side so big. I mean, there'll be a million startups in the next couple of years, but unless you have tons of money behind you, the odds, not that none of them will make it, but the odds are greatly against any of them.
Yeah.
Someone may come up with a great concept and make it, but as far as like
for Hogan, huh?
I don't think we've seen the last of those two.
No.
We certainly haven't seen the last of Bischoff. Matt Rats is a new concept. I mean, I don't know that
I like that idea.
I mean, I love the tape, and I'll say that much. But as far as like, there's plenty of wrestling. There's Tuesday nights, the gala. And
I don't have that though. I'm in Illinois, so.
Okay, well.
For me, like I said, all I got is WWF.
You got Windy City? Are they still? I don't even know if they're still around.
No, not on TV. Not as far as I know.
Okay, but I don't. Is anyone else on TV? I guess no one else is as far as national.
No, I don't think so. I guess I'm an optimist, but I think come June or July when they put WCW back on the air, I think it's going to reinvigorate a lot of people. I believe that they want this thing to be successful, and
well, obviously they want it to be.
Yeah, but not a lot of people are giving it that credit. I mean, talking that they wouldn't have a.
Well, JR did on Raw. You got to give that one when he said that. I'm going to go work for WCW if things just don't shape up with Vince.
Right.
He made out to be
but
good.
then they did that thing. Then they did that thing last night, and they made WCW look stupid again.
Yeah. But I don't know. I think in the end run, the whole thing is probably gonna be pretty successful.
Okay. All right, guys. Thanks a lot.
Okay. This is from Joel, who said, since you brought up Vern Gagne, why did he give the world title to Hulk Hogan? Not to Hulk Hogan, but to Otto Wanz. Didn't Otto buy it? Otto bought it for a few months just for his own publicity, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and Hogan didn't buy it. There was political reasons why Hogan never got it, and the main one was...
He was supposed to win it one night from Bockwinkel, and there's conflicting stories on why that didn't happen, but, obviously...
It was a Japanese deal. Vern had to deal with Baba, and Hogan had to deal with Inoki, and they couldn't settle that. They couldn't settle that problem.
Right.
Vern was getting paid by Baba for the AWA champion to go over there, and Hogan was getting paid $15,000 a week by New Japan Pro Wrestling, and he wasn't going to switch to Baba, so... Mm-hmm. They were kind of at a stalemate, so that's ultimately what happened.
Yeah, people expected Hogan to win that title, and when he didn't, that's probably was the start of the end for Vern.
Well, yeah, I a little bit of that, but I mean, they were still strong until the day Hulk left. It was really, you know what I mean?
Oh, certainly, yeah. No, I mean they were strong afterwards. I mean, crowds.
Yeah, they were strong for several. You're right, they were strong for several. But when Hogan left, they never really. I shouldn't say that because there were some sellouts with Bruiser and Crusher and stuff after that when they, but generally speaking,
that was mainly
I think
due because of the Road Warriors, but
yeah, with the Road, this is before the Road Warriors came in, but with the Road Warriors and Brody, I mean they had some decent years, even after that, but they never really hit the peak that they never hit the peak that they did with Hogan though.
Right. I mean there was the fever that was around that territory when Hogan was there was something that they never equaled.
Yeah. We are totally out of time. I want to thank you very much, Chris, for doing the show.
Yeah, thanks a lot, guys. I appreciate your time.
You're very welcome. We're going to have Chris back on, I think, June the 8th, so his book will be out by then, and we can talk more about the book. And I want to remind everyone we will be back Monday talking about all the weekend news at 5.